Hello and welcome back to the Yellow Squared podcast, a podcast hosted by two brothers on all things Watford Football Club. This week we're doing something a little bit different. We're having a bit more of a Watford, a focused chat rather than a fixture-based podcast. Obviously there are no fixtures there has been no fixtures in the past week due to the international break, but we are just having a chat on all things Watford and how we think the club is going right now. So I'll introduce you to my brother.
Hey guys, how you doing? You alright? Hey mate, you well?
And we'll kick things off. I don't know if you want to start things with some of your feelings at the moment, James.
Yeah. It's an international break, isn't it? So it's an opportunity to slow things down and have a think. No fixtures over this weekend, so plenty of time to sort of um,
Yeah.
mull over what's going on at the club. So I was really wrong with me actually. There were fixtures, obviously the women and the academy had fixtures, but there was no senior male fixtures.
Yeah.
So a little bit less pressure on us at the weekend. We could enjoy our weekend.
Yeah.
A little bit slower pace and a little bit of time to reflect. So where we are, sort of watching on from a distance, kind of dawned on me. What do we think? Where do we think the club is kind of going? What is it trending up? Is it trending down? And, are there any real red flags, or is there any positives that we can take away? Because in my opinion, it's not necessarily about how it's not necessarily all bad. It's not necessarily all good, and I think you can be sat in the middle somewhere as a Watford fan. And I think the vast majority of people who are a supporter of a football club are somewhere in the middle, and they can see good and bad. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity to have a little think about where the club is at the moment. So, I mean, I don't know what you think, mate. In terms of the club, how it's being run, where you think it's going.
Well, yeah. I think there are definitely positives and negatives. I think the club, well, as a whole, is so much better off with the Pozzos than where we were before that. Obviously, they've brought in a lot of money, and we've benefited from the Udinese and the Granada loopholes. We've benefited with a lot of great players and a lot of good links to European football that we didn't have before. And I think, them coming in was really like the catalyst which forced a change in the football club in 2012 or 2013.
Mm.
But ultimately, that meant us to have 7 seasons in the last 10 in the Premier League. But I think it is a difficult one, but I think it's starting to sour a little bit. The relationship definitely between quite a vocal part of the fan base and the Pozzos. I think it's interesting that we are hopefully going to get some kind of message from Gino at the end of the season, which should be good. Hopefully, he does address some of the problems, and doesn't just sort of glaze over it with nothing. But yeah, I think the club is in quite a toxic place at the moment. I just think people are falling out of love with the football club right now because it's really difficult to form any kind of relationship with manager or players who clearly don't really care about the badge or about the fans, and they're not really turning up every week. I mean, we absolutely battered Luton at the Vic, and we just don't see that kind of passion or desire from that group of players every week, which is quite frustrating as a fan who tries to watch as many games a season as I possibly can. I just feel like that desire isn't being repaid from the players themselves and the manager, and obviously constantly changing a head coach doesn't help. I think that's where a lot of the issues lie at the club. Whether the decision to sack them is right or wrong, clearly something is going wrong. That now this is like the eighth head coach under this roughly the same group of players, and it's it's the same problems. We can't get up for the smaller games, and we just look like we don't care as a team. I think the squad has some kind of an issue because we've had all kinds of managers. We have youthful, we've had experience, we've had winners, Ranieri, Hodgson. They've done everything in football pretty much, and they can't get anything out of the players. We've had youthful, Rob Edwards, and it just feels like we're going in a bit of a cycle of like a youthful manager, experienced old manager, and you just rinse and repeat. And clearly, it's not going to plan. So whether that's the players now, you've got to look at it. But I think, I think the club's in quite a toxic place at the moment. It's not always enjoyable being a Watford fan. But I don't think people outside of the football club really understand what is going on inside. Because from the outside, it just looks like they're a bit of a yo-yo team between the Premiership and the Championship, and there's not really much to complain about. But I think there's some kind of problem in the club for it to be now. SARS had 10 head coaches, and at some point we are just ruining players' careers. I think SAR's massively fallen off because of the amount of changes. I think if he doesn't leave soon, his career is going to be ruined for good. I mean, he's 25 now, and he's actually declining on where he was. I think he's much less hungry, he's much less direct. I think he doesn't know what he doesn't really know what he's supposed to do on the pitch. I think, if there isn't some kind of change soon in the club, then it could be ruining players' careers further on in the future.
I think that's Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're all good.
I think that's for me. That's the saddest thing about the club at the moment. And I know you want to talk about the academy in a bit, but the biggest source of pride for me when I was growing up, and I think the era of Watford that I sort of most associate, really enjoying and being part of, notwithstanding promotion seasons and the first few years under the Pozzos, because that's kind of obvious. But it was actually the seasons before that, the Malky, Mackay, Brendan Rodgers, Sean Dyche seasons where there was no money in the club. We were so reliant on academy players and young players coming through to effectively filling numbers. But they performed so well, and it felt like there was such an identity with Watford being this overachieving and overperforming club for the size of budget and financial power, for us to stay in the sort of the top 30 teams in England for that period. And I think for all of the benefits that you outlined there with what the Pozzos did when they first arrived and what they brought, and it would be silly for me to say that they haven't been on the whole positive for the club. Obviously they have been, and I firmly believe that as well. But I think the identity has kind of gone. Even in the first few years of the Pozzo regime, we had an identity of being this multinational, crazy, attacking, unpredictable club that that did things differently, and it worked for us, and it was fun, and it was really good to kind of get on board with that. And so I think that's the worst thing for me, is that it just feels like there's nothing to cling on to when things are going badly, which they are at the moment. And I think the bottom line is this season has been a unsuccessful one, and if we don't make the playoffs, it will have been a failure. by some degree, because if you look at the squad on paper, that squad should be more than capable of walking into the playoffs and should be challenging higher up the automatic promotion spots. Yeah, so I think that's kind of where I'm at. You mentioned that Gino Pozzo and Scott Duxbury meeting the fans.
Yeah.
And I put fans in inverted commas because it'll be a selected audience.
Yeah.
And there was some suggestion that they were going to basically put the invite list to the fans. Who decides who goes to these meetings in the future, which is an interesting approach.
Yeah.
But I know there's a large sort of proportion of people, and myself included, who I don't think it's going to be groundbreaking at all.
No.
I know that From the Rookery End guys have said this, and I agree with them on that one. What is Gino Pozzo going to say that is going to be interesting?
Yeah,
because he isn't going to put himself in the firing line.
No,
because why would he?
No.
He's going to tell everybody that he wants the best for the club and he wants the club to be in the Premier League, because of course he does. It's financially beneficial for him.
Yeah.
Either to make money from being in the Premier League or to sell the club.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I will be fascinated to know what comes out of those discussions.
Yeah.
I'd say, but I'm not really holding out much.
No.
Much on that at the moment.
No, well, I wouldn't hold anything out for, obviously you're not going to hear anything groundbreaking, or he's not gonna unveil some kind of like Marvel type roadmap for the next few years. But I just think I don't even remember.
There are these 5 players that we've just signed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Announce Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe we could use Fabrizio for that.
Yeah. But I don't even remember the last time that he spoke to the fans. So I think
the last time he spoke to anyone.
Yeah, I mean I saw a minute long clip of what used to be on Hornets Player of him when he first bought the club, and that's the only time that I've heard him speak about Watford. On a video, not just like quotes and stuff. But yeah, I think it'd be super interesting to just hear what he has to say.
What would you ask him?
I think I'd just ask him like, what direction are you planning on taking the club in? Because I don't feel like there's any kind of direction that we're heading in right now. I just think we're sort of flapping around hiring. I mean, we're going to run out of established managers in English football eventually. But we're just sort of signing anyone, head coach, in a way, but just signing head coaches left, right, and centre just to try and plug the gaps, which obviously doesn't work because we've had 2 seasons out of 3 in the last 3 years which have been dire, including this one. So obviously it's not working anymore. Because the year we went up, in 2014-15, we had 5 managers, and everyone went, "Oh, it's crazy how they've done that." But
I query that.
The 5 managers is a bit.
That always gets. It's like that the Troy Deeney interview on that Ben Shepherd and Cammy podcast where he was asked to name all the managers he's played under. And he forgot to say Hayden Mullins.
Oh.
And and it's like, I think people manipulate the stats a bit, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. I think we had that guy.
We wouldn't have got rid of Oscar Garcia.
Yeah.
Without him having a heart attack.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I take your point. But if you want to know what irks me and Luton fans, if you're listening, bring up the number of managers we've had, because it's not as many as leveled at us.
Yeah. Well,
And even before the Pozzos, we were the kings of managers for a season, weren't we?
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we always have that clip of Rob Edwards saying, Watford's a massive football club anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd be interested to just to hear what direction he wants to take the club in, because we've heard about this American investment, which I think is coming in eventually, to sell off some of the shares in the club. So I'd be interested to know sort of what that investment really entails. I don't know how much he would be able to say about that.
Well, yeah,
but
he's not going to say anything that would jeopardise a deal, would he?
No, but I just think it'd be nice to just hear what kind of direction he plans to take the club in, because obviously it's not working now. So yeah, I'd just be more than interested to know, like, if we're gonna stick with what we're doing, then we'd at least know not to really get our hopes up about anything, but whether there's going to be any change. I mean, hopefully with the new technical director and head of scouting, clearly something is beginning to change. But I don't think you can really expect anything immediately, because it would take 3 or 4 windows for them to really start the ball rolling. So yeah, but I definitely ask him, like, what he plans to do with the club. But yeah, I don't want to keep repeating myself. So what would you ask him if you had the opportunity?
I think I would ask him what he views his role as.
Yeah.
Is he the owner, or does he view himself as the arbiter of all that comes out of Watford? Because I think there's a subtle difference. If it's becoming clear that he has the ultimate say, and his decision is final, and he will make a decision that he wants, potentially, regardless of what has been put out.
Yeah.
On all medias. If you look at the Rob Edwards sacking,
yeah,
and yes, the hell or high water will be levelled at Scott Duxbury forever. And I feel bad for him in some ways, because why on earth would somebody in that position put that out in the media if he didn't mean it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'd want to ask him, what does he view his role as in the club? And you've got a lot of people now in those kind of football operations roles. How are they any different?
Yeah.
How does that break down? What's the delineation? If Ben Manga comes out and says something, what does that actually mean? Does he have any authority to say anything?
Yeah.
What is Diareta's role now? If we've got a head of scouting and a technical director and a director of football, what's the difference?
Yeah.
Because that's what I don't understand. And I think it would make life much easier as a fan, particularly fans like us who are sort of just on the peripheries of all things Watford.
Yeah.
To understand how the top level, how the boardroom operates.
Yeah.
So that would be my one question.
Yeah.
And I think he could answer that, and I think he'd be more willing to answer that rather than who are you going to sign.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's lots of questions that people will float about asking. Very, very direct. I mean, he's obviously not going to say anything that would jeopardize the football club. But I think, I think that the most concerning thing for me is that clearly there isn't a lot of money in the football club right now. So I mean, you look at the past sort of 3-4 windows, including Premier League last season. I'm worried that there isn't a lot of money in the club, and that we're making the wrong signings with that money. I mean, 5 million on Bio. I think he was treated harshly, but I don't know if we're starting to run out of money unless we can make a profit on Zhao and Sarr to keep the funds up.
Yeah, I agree. I agree on that one.
Yeah.
I think there's money in assets in the club.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. Well, I mean, my concern, and it's kind of the unspoken worry, really, is just how is there any truth or validity in the dodgy dealings, particularly
Yeah.
with Moji Bayat?
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
that could be crippling. That could be crippling for Watford, especially if there's like a points deduction or a fine put in place. Because if we're inflating transfers, I mean, look at the Hassan Kamara one.
Yeah. That's the worst one.
Well, I think there's some nuance in that. To be honest, I don't think it's as cut and dry because we signed him for however we didn't sign him for a lot.
No.
But he was superb. Let's be honest, he was superb in a relegated Premier League team.
Yeah, yeah. He's brilliant.
If we'd sold him in the summer for 16 mil to a top 5 European club, I don't think that there wouldn't be a single person outside looking at it going, oh yeah, well,
oh yeah, yeah, definitely,
because in today's market, half a season of strong performances. They weren't perfect, they weren't brilliant. There were some ups and downs, but he did come in and make a massive difference. I think he's not been helped by the massive slump in form.
No.
But I still think there's a good player in there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But the Vakun Bio situation absolutely stinks for me.
Yeah.
When you look at who was involved, Moji Bayat as the agent, and I think a relation of Moji Bayat is that Charleroi. There's something in there. I think from what I've read. Yeah. That's just horror. That for me that's really distasteful, and that's not what I want to see from
no.
Watford. So,
well, no, obviously not. I mean, I wouldn't want to see it in football on the whole, but certainly not the club that I love. I mean, I think if there is anything to do with that, I mean, like you said, I think that the Kamara transfer, on one hand, you could say, well, they were just balancing the books. Obviously, Udinese owed us some money. We owed Udinese some money. So clearly, they could have been just balancing the books financially. But I don't know. I think there are some transfers which could potentially have I don't want to say anything like really incriminating, but I think some of them could clearly stink. I mean, like you said, I mean, if Mogi Bayat's been, I think he's being investigated right now. I just hope that Gino has not had anything to do with that side of his dealings.
We know that the Pozzos and they're sort of inner circle are not averse to loopholes and grey areas in football finance, which isn't desirable. But if there's a loophole, then in competitive sport and when there's millions on the line, people are going to use it, and if you don't use it, someone else will. Yeah. I'm not condoning it.
But, no. I completely understand.
A loophole isn't breaking the law.
Exactly. I think that's there must be some kind of a fine line between that. And how close the club is treading on that, I don't have a clue. But I hope that we're doing everything legally. Loopholes are a loophole really. If it's legal, then you're just trying to benefit. I mean, it's a competitive sport at the end of the day, and it's a business. So if there's some kind of a loophole which you can benefit off, then obviously you're going to try and take advantage of it. I just hope nothing illegal has become of those loopholes. Otherwise, it could be devastating for the football club.
Yeah. But no, yeah, I take your point. It just occurs to me. I was just wondering, what's your kind of take on Watford? Obviously, there's an age gap between us. You started following Watford at different times. I sort of most of my time, as I alluded to, is of a Watford that's been punching above its weight.
Yeah.
Where are you at?
Well, I think mine's a bit warped for my age category because I grew up watching the season reviews from like 2007. Obviously, I wasn't there for any of that because I would have been like two. So it's a little bit warped, but I just think like the first proper season I can remember would definitely have been Zola 2013 properly. Obviously, I can remember parts of Sean Dyche, but I just think, yeah, like you said, we've been that club that is, had so many nationalities, played exciting football, just really been an exciting football club to be around, which probably helped me to just fall in love with the football club in total, because obviously you're not going to be excited by a 0-0 every week, and that's not going to encourage you to come back. But maybe losing 4-3. I mean, I remember the Charlton game at home under Zola.
New Year's Day game.
Yeah, I just remember that being one of the most exciting games of football. To what I mean, I know we lost, but like I said, after the QPR game on that pod, that I'd rather us do that than just lose 1-0 every week. But yeah, I think we've been that kind of club that's definitely punched above our weight. I think in comparison to most other Premier League clubs and the size of clubs that have gone up now, Nottingham Forest, for example, we are so small in comparison to that.
Yeah.
I think we were shrouded by obviously Bournemouth going up at the same time as us, first time in the top division. They're tiny, tiny ground, and it was always a bit like, oh, it's sort of plucky Bournemouth, and they do things the right way, and we always played as sort of that pantomime villain in the media because we do things a little bit differently. But yeah, I think it's definitely fair to say that I've grown up with Watford being the club that sort of excites people. They do things a bit crazy, but yeah, it just an exciting football club, which is just the way that I've seen Watford since I was younger.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I mean I think everybody tends to look back at their formative years and imagines this. Everybody will talk about the way their club plays.
Yeah.
Watford, high pressing, exciting, attacking football. And then if you go to another club, it'll be what's the Liverpool way? Oh, it's high tempo attacking football.
Yeah.
And you go, every club has this kind of look back on it, but I think it's a bit girlish to say that that's how we should play and whatnot. But I think what's important is that, and this is where I don't understand the disconnect between what happens on the pitch and what happens off the pitch with Watford in terms of they've got the tagline creating history, respecting our past and all that, and I think they've been excellent at acknowledging what came before, the Graham Taylor statues, the Anne Swanson family stand, arena, all the murals that have sprung from the club, which they're so cool. And it's made it feel like a real nice, a proper in the community club, which is brilliant. And that is what Watford is, in my opinion. That's the essence of Watford. Is this club in the centre of a town which brings young people, families feel comfortable going to it. And I don't think that should be lost. And I think that the club is doing well at that. But it can't be too difficult to just, even if it's just that clip of GT saying, it's a simple game, it's a game for a man on the terrace. Yeah, I'm paraphrasing there, I think.
Yeah.
But in other words, it's just, for me, that translates as hard work and desire.
Yeah.
And the core and a culture surrounding that whatever the result, as long as you come off the pitch and you can't walk, playing like if you had a team of Chowdhuries, I
Yeah.
think the club would and the fans would respond to that so much more than and this might be taken out of context. A team of SARS who are brilliant and might win more games than the team of Hamzas, but you would just be relying on 2 moments of maybe real high quality as opposed to 90 minutes of blood and thunder.
Yeah.
And that's very simplistic, and people might hold very different opinions of it. But in terms of styles of play and whatnot, I'm not that fussed. But just a committed team.
Yeah.
And I think for me and that's why I think it's important that even if it doesn't go well, I would rather have Chris Wilder in the dugout at the start of next season.
Yeah.
Than not at the moment, based on kind of what we've seen performances. And we're not talking about matches today, obviously, but in terms of performances and the style of play and what he's saying and kind of the little sparks of a culture developing in the team. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a monologue. Sorry, mate. I went on a bit there.
No, you're fine. Yeah. I completely agree. I think that the fans get excited by the smallest thing, a good challenge, or just somebody doing some running for the ball or working hard. And like you said, like we may win more games or get more points from a team of SARS that would create a bit of quality, maybe once or twice a game. But I think the fans would probably respond better to a team that works hard every game, gives their all, and it doesn't matter where they finish, because then that they've given everything and they can't physically give anything else, and then that's where you can build. But I think there's a couple of players in this team that that really put the effort in, and there are quite a few that are being carried by those. But yeah, that's everything that I can really think of, to be honest. I don't know if you wanted to add anything else before we quickly jump into the news this week and then wrap things up.
No, you're good. I'm all good.
Yeah. But I think it's been nice to just have a chat about Watford. Obviously, we've spoken about managers in the past and the season so far, but it's nice to just go back through and just discuss everything about the club that we're thinking about right now, because that's the whole point of this podcast. We came together, just decided that there's quite a big age difference between us, so it's interesting to have a chat between different generations, just different views on the football club. So we'll move on quickly to the news just before we wrap things up. It's actually been a very busy week for Watford in the news and former Watford players. So we'll start off with the latter. Former Watford centre-back Adrian Mariappa has joined Salford City on a short-term deal until the end of the season. I've seen him bounce around a few clubs in League One now, so hopefully he can get himself a longer-term contract somewhere. But it's nice to see him back playing football. Of course, the cycling GK Ben Foster has returned to Wrexham after 18 years and made his debut on Saturday against York City in a 3-0 win. So it's nice to see him back playing with no grudges, which is nice to say. So moving on quickly to the academy. So it surfaced in the past few days that the defender Harry Amas in the academy is in advanced talks with Manchester United, and I believe it's simply to do with the facilities at Watford, and obviously we're not going to be able to compete with Manchester United, but he's a startler. I mean, he plays he plays for England under 16, so and he made the squad in January against Reading. So clearly the club rate him. I don't think we'll be able to keep hold of him if his reasons for leaving are purely facility and development based, because obviously we can't compete with Manchester United's academy. But yeah, it would be a shame to see him move on, especially as he's so highly rated in the club.
Yeah, that would be a tough one.
Yeah,
I mean, but it would be a shame. But yeah, you're not going to stand in the way of him.
Oh no. Yeah.
And if I'm in his shoes, even at 15, you've got to look to go that way.
Yeah.
And go play for United.
Yeah. I mean, if you can go to the top, then you're always going to want to get there.
We spoke about the academy and earlier in the pod, and how historically prolific it was at putting players forward. And that's I expressed my opinions on the disappointment of that. The only thing that would potentially look to keep somebody here, such as Harry Amass, and stop him going to United, is if he felt that there was a pathway. And at 17, 18, he'd be playing first team football in the Championship or in the Premier League. And that's not the case. So I think the club is shooting itself in the foot in that regard. But if they needed any more evidence about investing in your youth and longevity, you just mentioned Mariappa.
Yeah.
Still finding clubs, I say at his age, but he's still finding clubs. Clubs still want to sign him. In the top leagues of England, he was someone that epitomised the Watford I grew up following.
Yeah.
So delighted for him, and that should really be something that the club looks at.
Yeah.
Going forward, because it has been neglected. The academy.
Well, I think it's interesting that in the past sort of 10 years, I could probably name you one player that's come through two players that have come through the academy and sort of actually played some proper first team football. One being Sean Murray, and the other being Joe Hungbo. But even he's not really broken through properly, which probably shows how much it's been neglected. Up until we had a massive injury crisis, and then all of a sudden we were using, Adebayo, and that is a testament. Obviously, that can be the pathway into the first team, which can attract these young players to staying at the academy. And speaking of a pathway into the first team, Adrian Blake has been promoted into the first team squad. He was not in the under-21 squad for their 2-1 win over Colchester last Friday, because following his performance in a 1-0 win over QPR, Chris Wilder was actually in attendance for that and decided to promote him to the first team. His future actually at the club isn't certain. Obviously, his deal runs out in June, but after he turns 18th, then he can be eligible for like a proper pro contract. But yeah, there's definitely other clubs sniffing around. Newcastle, Tottenham, and obviously he's played 3 or 4 times this season in the first team, so obviously he's good enough. I thought he's looked good in all the highlights and the youth games I've seen. But yeah, it's interesting that he's been promoted, which, well, congratulations is all you can really say to that.
Great news for him, because it's a bit more official, isn't it, rather than being called up for a cup game. So that's great news. I think there's actually a couple more important points actually to pull from this. One is Chris Wilder going to watch academy games.
Yeah,
and you can argue that why wouldn't he? He's going to look for potential options towards the run into the end of the season. But I think actually what that shows is a manager that is trying to invest himself in the club.
Yeah,
and he's thinking about the right things.
Yeah,
and that's I took that as a real plus point.
Yeah, I think that's interesting.
I know because I don't know. There was no suggestion that Roy went to watch academy games.
Oh no.
But
Yeah.
so I think that's really important that Chris Wilder is dedicating the time to go and go and look at these youth players.
Yeah.
And that he's not just going to watch the senior pros who are getting run out for fitness, because he's clearly picking up on these players and he wants to put them in the first team fold, which is brilliant. But I think, we've spoken about Amas and why he's not going to stay at Watford.
Mm.
And if I'm Adrian Blake, and if I've got Newcastle or Spurs offering me a deal, what's going to make me want to maybe sign on is guarantees of first team football.
Mm.
And if Chris Wilder is talking to him and he's having those discussions and he's having a pathway put in place, then again it's another reason why you need continuity, particularly over the summer, because you can have these discussions and you can make promises and you can demonstrate a player pathway, and you can try and keep these young players at the club. So I think brilliant news that he's in the Watford squad, but there's some other good signs that can be drawn out from the whole story. But there's more alarm bells ringing with how the academy is and has been run.
Yeah.
And what needs to happen in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that was the last of the news articles from the last week or so. So we will end up this week's podcast. We'll be back very soon for a little preview of the Derby game this Saturday, which will be interesting. I really hope we can come away with a win.
Yeah,
I would be happy to finish 9th if we just pick up a win at Kenilworth Road. So yeah, that is everything from me. I don't know if you had any final comments, James.
Nope. No, nothing more from me. Thanks everybody. Had a great time. Always good to have a little bit of a slower time chat and express some thoughts.
Yeah, very nice. So yes, we will see you again very soon. So make sure you do subscribe to make sure you don't miss out on any of this fantastic content. Make sure that you like the video and leave a comment if you have any opinions on what we've discussed, whether you view Watford in a different way to either of us. But either way, we'd be very happy to have a little discussion in the comment section. We are now also available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and I believe we are working on Amazon Podcasts as well. So that is excellent news for us. So feel free to check us out on either of those platforms and give us a 5-star review, please. But yeah, that is everything from us this week, and we'll see you very soon. Take care.
Cheers, guys.